What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How is it going? I am Is There No One Else, and the video I'm bringing you today, we are going to go over the 5.2.2 patch notes. Now, if this is the first time you guys are seeing it, I'm going to do my best to cover everything. I've heard some of the changes, and they do sound pretty good. I'm not going to lie, guys. Like this is probably one of the most pivotal patch notes that I have been around in a while. I can think of a lot of my friends have been waiting on these patch notes to see what this combat team was going to do, and if they really messed up, they were going to stop playing. And I guess we'll just have to dive into the patch notes and be as honest as possible and see what's going on with them, and hopefully we get some really good changes. So with that being said, guys, let's dive into it. Elder Scrolls Online 5.2.2 adds several adjustments to combat abilities affecting the Dragonite, Templar, and Warden, in addition to some additional fixes and changes for other abilities and item sets. There will be a few additional combat changes coming next week, including some adjustments to damage over time abilities that you can read more about in the Known Issues section. Okay. There are also a number of fixes for dragons and Dragonhold quests, a variety of dungeons, and more. This patch also introduces a new event for testing, Dawn of the Dragon Guard. Furthermore, we will be performing a stress test against dragons in both Northern and Southern Elsewhere this Wednesday, October 2nd, from 3 to 4 p.m. Help us in killing as many dragons as you can during this time. Okay. We've copied all PC, Mac, EU characters in this patch, which is approximately 395 megabytes in size. Thank you for your continued feedback. Table of contents, Dawn of the Dragon Guard. Alright, so this is the new event. Kill Overland Dragons, kill dragons. Double drops, okay. So I'm just briefly reading through it. So it's just the new event. You kill dragons, you get double drops. It's interesting. Okay, combat and gameplay. General, the feedback on the adjustments made to Shadow Image have been heard. We're looking for a way to ensure this ability's actual range is always reflected on the tooltip and ability bar so we can properly increase the teleport range without leading back into situations where you thought you could activate the ability but couldn't. Alright? In a future patch during the PTS cycle, we will be increasing the total damage of any damage over time abilities that were adjusted in PTS 5.2.0 by approximately 20% to reduce situations where many of the abilities felt difficult to maintain outside of nanosecond perfect rotation. This means there will be an average overall reduction in damage from dot abilities of approximately 33% compared to what is currently on the live mega servers. Alright, so Grand Cliff's notes. Elsewhere to Scalebreaker was a rough 88% increase in damage over time effects overall, if I remember correctly. They then brought dots back by 50%. So Scalebreaker to Dragonhold got reduced by 50%. So if you think about it, dots on the first week of the PTS were actually less than dots at Elsewhere. And so now what they're saying, guys, is dots will be 33% less than what they currently are in Scalebreaker, which I think is actually a pretty good spot in general. So I think it's a pretty good spot that dots got that kind of reduction. Now, they're still going to be powerful. This still puts them, it's a 20% boost. So that's probably, 15%-ish compared to Elsewhere. They got a pretty nice boost. They're still going to be effective. It makes some dot-based classes a little bit better. This makes a lot of sense to me. Now, well, we'll just have to see how it plays out. I'm gonna do a lot of testing with the dots in the PTS, but this is a good change. I talked about it. I talked about it a few times on a few of my videos, and I try not to bitch on my videos. I try to provide constructive feedback, but sometimes when you say the same things over and over and over again, it kind of sounds like you're bitching. So I try to avoid that. But I've always felt like, reducing dots by 20 to 35% from what Scalebreaker currently is like that perfect sweet spot. Where dots are still doing damage, they're still affecting your health bar. If you don't heal, you're going to die. But if you run across 6 people all running fucking Soul Trap and Entropy, they're not going to end your life. And so That's nice. And so what this means, guys, is dots will still be doing damage, but they won't be doing all of your damage. And so I like, on paper, I like where this is at. I think this makes a lot of sense. I do think that you need a little bit more, ZeniMax, I do think you need a little bit more counterplay with entropy and Soul Trap. Monsters and PvE and stuff, they're not able to dodge dots. But if you made entropy and Soul Trap kind of like, poison injection, to where you could dodge incoming attacks if they were a little bit slower and you could counteract them a little bit, then you would provide a little bit more counterplay to them. I think you would see a lot less people abusing dots in PvP because, they wouldn't be the easy one-button warrior thing that, you're trying to fight against. Because right now, guys, you can't dodge these dots. They just cast them at you at range, and then you just eat them. And then you watch your health bar tick away. And you get hit with ranged executes, and if you're not prepared, you drop over dead. So, anyways, I do like where this is at. I think a little bit more needs to be done, particularly with Soul Trap and Entropy. I think all of the dots are more or less fine with this one change. So, we'll just have to keep an eye on that. Many passes and item sets related to damage over time will receive some adjustments to ensure their total power remains closer to their intended power budget. Dive's range requirement will be reduced to help improve instances where you can activate the off-balance proc in a future patch. Ooh, there we go. So off-balance procs at Wardens at 12 meters. And so it's kind of a weird range for some builds. And so that's awesome. That's a really good change. That's really good. Major Vulnerability will receive some adjustments in a future patch to ensure it's still a powerful tool, but cannot be stacked to the point where you want a world of only Necromancers. So this is more of a PvE-based thing, but it does make sense even in PvP, guys. Like the Vulnerability ult is very powerful. It does a shit ton of damage, and it provides a very large major buff that you can't do with any other class. And so it's my belief that having Major Vulnerability is fine, but maybe reducing the damage that this ultimate does so that it's not the end-all, be-all, standalone damage-dealing ultimate. So, that's just my opinion. Keep it its major buff. And I do know, guys, that Necromancer is in a rough spot. I play Stamina Necromancer. I know Magic and Necromancer is in a very rough spot. And when you reduce the Major Vulnerability ult, you're really reducing Magic and Necromancer's chance to kill anybody in PvP because that's all they have. And so as always, guys, if I call for an adjustment to a skill, I'm only ever talking about the skill. I'm not saying, hey guys, Magic and Necromancers are bullshit, we need to reduce something. It's just holistically, this ultimate is very strong, and this ultimate is carrying the Magic and Necromancer class in PvP currently. And so what they need to do is they need to provide better skills and better abilities for the Magic and Necromancer class so that it's not hinging on an ultimate getting things. And so I understand that this is bad for Necromancers, but, it would be a good adjustment if it was reduced while they also brought other things around it up. In an ideal world, of course. But, it's easier said than done when, you're a Magic and Necromancer hoping for buffs, and your only way to kill things is reduce once again. So I totally get it, guys. I totally get it. I'm just only talking about the skill. Combat and gameplay for monsters. I don't care about no monsters. Crafting and economy, housing, quests and zones, dungeons, quests and zones, combat and gameplay. Baron Thirsk. Nope. Lots of dungeon content. Alright. Combat and abilities, general. Fix an issue where your sprinting would not remove invisibility from your character. Fix an issue where your stamina bar can become desynced if you are pulled or CC'd while sprinting. Fix an issue where you would be charged for sprinting while swimming. Fix an issue where Bastion and other sources of unique bonuses could increase all character effectiveness while meeting the requirements. Dragon Knight, Ardent Flame, Combustion. This passive no longer has a cooldown in order to help the Dragon Knight sustain itself, since it doesn't have a class-based dedicated resource ability, such as Dark Exchange or Siphoning Strikes. Wow. So, Combustion, guys, it's when you are impact somebody with the poisoned or burning status effect. If I remember correctly, it's 500 magic or stamina, if I remember correctly. And they've been slowly increasing cost of Dragonite skills by quite a bit. Keep in mind, in 5.2.0, Burning Embers and the Poison Morph, Venomous Claw, now automatically apply the status effect. So they got the increased cost in that ability, but I guess this offsets it a little bit. And so not only can you proc this, but it basically procs off a cooldown. So that's very interesting. They talked about it in the last patch about how they wanted to provide status like a specific, like they wanted like the charged trait to be more of like a Dragonite type of thing, and this puts that more in line. So now you can have a chance of increasing your status effects. Very interesting. I guess we'll have to test it and see exactly how good this is as far as sustain goes for Dragonites. Maybe we're actually able to run charged. I don't know. We'll have to test it. Fire Breath, Engulfing Flames. This ability's bonus flame damage modifier now uses both your spell damage and your max magicka rather than only spell damage to allow for more builds to engage with the morph. This is a fantastic change. They basically wanted to offset it to where tanks aren't running Engulfing Flames to get the buff to their group. They want to be able to say, like, hey, if you want this bonus, you have to bring a Magicka DK into PvP or into Trials in order to get this 10% bonus. Now a tank can't do it. This still satisfies it, as well as making it a lot easier to get in PvP. So that's awesome. Searing Heat fixed an issue where rank 2 of this build is applying its damage done to all the Ardent and Flame abilities rather than only the listed ones. Increase the damage bonus to 33% from 10% to help distinguish the Dragonite's damage over time abilities as superior to others. So, dots got increased. And at a base level, Searing Heat got increased, which is a passive, so your Burning Breath and your Venomous Claw or Burning Embers. DK's dots are back. This is good. This is really good. I like this quite a bit. DKs weren't going to be able to kill shit with the dots the way they were. We all saw the video, or we all saw people showing it, but, if Volatile Armor is your best dot, and you're a Dragonite and you rely on dots to kill people, you're in for a rough time. So this makes a lot of sense. I think this makes a lot of sense. This brings Dragonites back. When we want to talk about class identity, this is one of the class identities of Dragonites. Strong damage over time effects, tanky, kind of wear you down, beat you up. They're not supposed to have as much burst as other classes because they have good dots. And so this is a good step in the right direction. Earthen Heart, Stone Fist. Adjust this ability in the Stone Giant Morph based on PTS feedback, as well as in preparation for an additional pass in a future update. This is merely part 1. Okay. Reduce the maximum stacks required to stun the target to 3 from 5. Perfect. Allowing the stun to reach sooner and be planned around more accordingly. This is a great change. Increase the damage taken per stack of stagger with the Stone Giant Morph up to 45, up from 25, to offset and slightly buff the adjustments to the stacks. Please note that while this number may look small, it works with everything. Yes, everything, like all the damage. Okay, let's check it out. Reduce the duration of the stacks to 5 seconds per application, down from 10 seconds, to help ensure the non-damage focused builds cannot maintain a Stone Giant's powerful group tool of damage taken as efficiently, since it works on, again, literally everything. Fair enough. Please note that each time you attempt to apply stagger to an enemy, the duration of these stacks is refreshed, so you do not need to hit the enemy 3 times within 5 seconds of the initial application. So this is like other, Asylum Destro has the same thing. You have to hit 2 force pulses on somebody within 5 seconds, and each time you hit it, it refreshes. Fury works in the same way. This stagger works no differently. Developers' comments. Welcome back, developers' comments. We missed you. Thank you for doing this again, ZeniMax. I really do think this is awesome when you put these comments in here. When they're not in here, people get annoyed because they don't really understand why what's going on is going on. So, in response to many points of feedback we've seen centered on this ability, we're going to spend some time improving the gameplay pattern and visual storytelling this ability provides. Wow. Okay. While we won't be able to do another large pass in this update, the changes above fit more in line with the direction we plan to make with the ability. The lesser stack requirement should help in building up to a of devastating stun feel more tangible in terms of landing in hectic combat, while the shorter duration should give opponents more time to react to it. So far, guys, ZeniMax has answered my personal issues with some of the changes in week 1 of the PTS. I'm not saying that they've answered all of them yet, because we're not done yet. But Dragonite dots were one. This ability, although good, the stagger was kind of useless at 5, and so 3 makes a lot of sense. Increasing Dragonite dots, increasing dots as a whole, made sense. I talked about that in a previous video as well. I'm not gonna lie, guys. So far, they needed to hit these patch notes out of the park as far as their changes, and it looks like they're doing that. So far, there's nothing egregious yet. I actually like all these so far, so we'll just keep going. Sorcerer, hopefully I'm not setting myself up for a big letdown, but I'm very, very pleased with what these are. I think this is getting to a better spot. It's not that there aren't going to be some broken things. There's always broken builds and stuff in PvP. There's always broken, mechanics. It's just this is getting to a pretty good spot. We're not going back to the tank meta, and we're not getting dicked down by just dots. So I like it. Sorcerer, Daedric Summoning, Bound Armor. Bound Armament's morph. This morph has a new sound effects to highlight the functionality changes it brings. All right. Templar, Dawn's Wrath, Backlash. This ability and its morphs will now only store damage dealt from the caster of the ability rather than anyone who hits the afflicted target. I know you guys... That's a very, very good change, and I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. This is done to offset some of the staggering power of the light. I see what you guys did there. I am a fan of terrible puns, okay? So if they can do more developer comments and more terrible puns, I'm all for it. So, yes. Staggering power, the ability could bring in group situations where low damage builds could apply the ability and generate free real estate from their allies' contribution. Now you have to put in the fervor to get the full power of these abilities. This is an amazing change, guys. And so, I've talked about this in the past about Templars, okay? In Elsewhere, I did feel like Templars were in a pretty good spot. I thought that they were strong. They weren't as strong solo as other classes were, but they weren't bad. When you start putting them in a group, that's where Templars really shine, especially Magicka Templars, because their group support ability with Breath of Life really puts them, above typically other classes. They have high survivability, and then they have the ability to put Purifies down, and then they can just hit you with that quick burst heal, and you're at 5% health, and now you're back to full. That group playability is what always made Templar good. Now, there's a few reasons why they're so powerful in Scalebreaker. Number one, they can really abuse the increased dot damage, and Purifying Light and Power of the Light is the main reason. It stores all of your incoming damage. If you're taking more damage, Purifying Light and Power of the Light is going to be even more effective. And so people are looking at this and they're like, wow, Templars are hitting me really fucking hard this patch. And it's like, yeah, they're hitting you with a bunch of dots. They have Purifying Light or Power of the Light on you, and the maximum copy damage is stored. And so you used to get hit by this, but you weren't getting hit by this many dots, and so you weren't getting bursted all of the time. In the past, it would be like it would be 1 out of 3 Power of the Lights where you'd have to deal with actually a really high storage. 1 out of 2, 1 out of 3. Like one of them would do some damage, like they'd hit you with sweeps or whatever, and then one of them, they'd hit you with the full wombo combo where you'd get hit with an ult, right before it goes off, and now it's fully stored, and then you get the ult plus that, and it's just a lot of pop damage. This patch in Scalebreaker, all of them are that because of dots. All of them are just fully storing, and it's always been like this. And so if you fought a few Magplars or a few Stamplars, and you were getting hit with multiple lights, and they were all hitting you, it was just so much burst to deal with. And I used to run this on my healer. I would put Purifying Light on people, and I would do callouts. I'd be like, hey, focus this guy. And I'd put the beam over their head, and then everybody would know who to focus, and now it's free burst damage. And I would utilize it as a healer because it was free damage that was stored up that other people could use. Now, it's only that Templar. And so it'll still be bursty. It will still do high damage, but you're taking away a lot of the burst that it can provide with high damage over time effects. And so now the Templar doing it has to do damage in order for it to be useful. I think this is a great change, especially with an increase in dots. It only makes sense that the one person has effect to this. Also, they made it to where Backlash can crit. And Backlash critting was always an issue. And a lot of people cringed, including myself in the 5.2.0 patch notes when they said, like, hey, this ability can crit now. Because they used to do it in the past, and it was just way too much damage. It was way, way too much damage. And it was tough to deal with, especially outnumbered. And now it's like, okay, you get hit by this. That one person has to do it. And if they're good and they apply a full burst combo to you, this is going to hit, and it can hit very hard. And so, yes, if you fight a Stamplar, they can absolutely do stuff to you. But it's not they stack on it and then sit in a chair and watch you just get dotted down and laugh as you get bursted. So I really, really like this change. I really think it's good. We'll have to test this in full because, yeah, like I said, I think this is solid. Fix an issue where these abilities would conflict with one another if more than one player casts the same morph of the ability on a target. All right. Warden Winter's Embrace Sleep Storm. Permafrost. Reduce the damage done to this morph by 50% to ensure this morph functions primarily as a utility and defensive morph. Wow. Well, like I said, guys, I was really hoping they were going to hit it out of the park this patch notes, and Permafrost got hidden for a little while as far as how powerful the ultimate was. It got hidden behind Pestilent Colossus and the Bash ultimate. And before that, Permafrost was the no-brainer strongest ability. It would snare people in place. It would CC everybody. It would give you major protection. Due to the ulti gen that Wardens would have, you could have this up quite a bit. And it was just you needed it in the same way a year and a half ago that they were messing with Incapacitating Strike by taking away the Defile. This needed to happen because Permafrost was very overloaded with what it did. And now it's more of a support ability. So when you cast this, you're very tanky to your group. This is still going to be very effective because you're providing major protection and minor maim to everybody that you're hitting. And it's also a huge snare. And so it synergizes well as a support-based skill. It's still going to have utility. It's just not going to do as much damage. But keep in mind, guys, in 5.2.0, they also increased the duration by a lot. And a few people commented on my channel that Permafrost on the PTS was really just ending people's lives because it was 12 seconds. If I remember correctly, it was 12 seconds of Permafrost, which is just tough to deal with. And so they want to keep that duration, but they reduced the damage by a lot to counteract that. So a lot less burst, a lot more utility, and overall just sustained pressure. So we'll have to test it, see where it's at. I'm not saying this is in a good spot, but if you're not going to lower the duration, you need to lower the damage, in my opinion, and this is the route that they went. Northern Storm Morph, the max magic granted from this morph is no longer enabled but passively by slotting. Instead, it is granted for 30 seconds after activating the ultimate. Okay. Increase the amount of magic granted to 9% from 8%. This morph now ranks up in 2% magic up to 15% at rank 1 rather than 1.1% damage done per rank. Okay. Berserker Strike. Onslaught. This morph now grants penetration equal to 85% of the resistance ignored on the initial hit at rank 1, which increases to 100% at rank 4 rather than 100% at all ranks. Okay, it's still going to be the burstiest ultimate regardless. Decrease the duration to 5 seconds from 9. This morph no longer ranks up in duration. Developer comment. These changes were done to ensure you still gain a very powerful effect to enable your playstyle, but the lower duration requires you to properly capitalize on the time period by going aggressive, while enemies can use the time to attempt to thwart this by utilizing CC, movement abilities, or retaliating. Great change. This is a fantastic change. I've obviously been using Onslaught. Onslaught is very powerful. 12 seconds, fully buffed of full pen, obviously is very strong. Now, 5 seconds, if you use your combination right, guys, Onslaught's still going to be amazing. You use your ultimate as part of a burst combination to finish people off. And so your 5 seconds should be spent attempting to execute somebody, not doing damage to kill people. Now, there are times, most of the time when I use this ability, I'm going for the finisher at full pen instead of doing full damage at full pen for 12 seconds, But there were times where, you hit a Magplar and you chunk them, and you don't take away enough of their health, and they heal back to full. And then you have 12 seconds to just go, you know what, I'm going to tee off on you. And 12 seconds is 2 durations of Power of the Light. It's a few summons of Blast Bones plus D-Swing. It is a long time to be taking a bunch of burst. And so it's still going to be powerful. It still ignores resistances. You can still hit. This is probably still the hardest hitting ultimate in the game. You just don't have 12 seconds of full pen. So I think this is a very good change. I talked about it before. I would have preferred for it to go back to what it previously did. You know, if you kill somebody with it, you get the ultimate back. Then we don't have to deal with this full pen thing. But Onslaught gives you that ability to kill anybody, regardless of how tanky they are. And so it gives you that opening to finish them off. And so you don't have these fights that can seemingly go on forever. And so Onslaught is that great equalizer in this game. Eventually, I'd like to see it get to a point where we don't necessarily need ignoring all resistances, but considering how many unkillable builds exist in it elsewhere, this is a very welcome change to where you just don't have a guy walking into 5 people laughing his ass off saying, "Ha, you can't kill me," because mechanics in this game make it to where you can't kill me. So I do like this. I do think it needed to come down. I think that makes a lot of sense. Once again, very good change. Itemization and item sets. Coward's Gear fixed an issue where the set was not properly updated while sprinting. All right. Crushing Wall fixed an issue where the bonus damage to your light and heavy attacks granted from the set was ending while Wall of Elements or Morphs were still active. Okay. New Moon Acolyte fixed an issue where the set was displaying different cost increase values for different item qualities. All right. We will be talking about this set in a video this week. I promise you guys that. Sensual Defender increased the magic and stamina restored per stack of the set to 666, up from 535, to better equate from small mini game in order to proc it. Okay, so that's the resource return one that I did 2 weeks ago. So this is the one where when you light attack, you store this, if I remember correctly, and then you do a full heavy attack, and then you can return a bunch with it. Okay, so that got a buff. Steadfast Hero increased the cooldown of this set to 20 seconds, up from 10 seconds, to reduce some of the staggering power that this set enables with major protection. All right, this is going to be my one gripe, okay? There are some things that got properly adjusted, and I just disagree with how they got adjusted, okay? Major protection is a very, very powerful thing. It's a very powerful buff. It allows you to be very tanky. You don't take as much damage. It allows you to go defensive very well. And so there are some things that abused it quite a bit. Steadfast Hero has been more popularized because Pirate Skeleton got nerfed. But Steadfast Hero is also popular. Pirate Skeleton, obviously, 2 patches ago for the same reason. If you look at the lingering health pots change from 5.2.0, all these things needed to come down a little bit. However, I don't like how they went about doing it. Like Pirate Skeleton, an increase in duration should have been fine. You didn't have to provide the debuff, in my opinion, for Pirate Skeleton. I can't remember what the uptime is on Major Protection, but now you get Major Defile with it too. So you don't heal and you don't take much damage. It's kind of a weird monster set. It's not really providing a big buff for the uptime that it's providing. Steadfast Hero is now the same way. It used to be 5 out of 10 seconds, so you could have 50% uptime on Major Protection. Now it's 5 out of 20 seconds. And so I'm not saying that 25% uptime on Major Protection is bad. I'm just saying that, if you're going to do something like this, I would have preferred to see 8 out of 32 seconds. If you're going to do 5 out of 20, I would like to see a slight longer window with protection than 5 seconds, and then you have a longer time outside of it. So when you do cast this, because you need the protection and you really are getting hammered, you have that window to where hey, this is going to help me. I think a 5-second window personally is just a little bit too small. I think I think 5 out of 15 seconds would have been perfect. But at the end of the day, guys, I feel like this adjustment did need to happen. Major Protection is very powerful. They need to look at... Major Protection is very powerful. So in general, if they want to get rid of the tank meta, they need to adjust Major Protection. It's going to be a lot harder to use Steadfast Hero now in PvP, and it would be nice if it was useful without being super, super strong. that makes any sense. Virulent Shot, reduce the range requirement to reach the maximum duration of the set to 15 meters from 22 meters, since you need to be a pixel perfect distance to reach it. This also allows the set to be engaged with more outside of only playing for maximum range. All right. Housing, UI, and that is it. So, really good changes, guys. Really, really good changes overall. Honestly, like the dot adjustment this patch is going to make wards more viable in Dragonhold as it was. The damage reduction, dots needed to do damage regardless. They need to do damage in my opinion. I think we reached a more happy middle ground. I'm not saying it's perfect. I think a few more things need to be done as I talked about. But these patch notes were really good, guys. You know, they obviously didn't cover everything, but what they did cover was very good. You know, there's no head scratching like, well, why did you do this? You know, the dots are, in my opinion, they're in a pretty good spot. Some gear sets got adjusted properly. Like all of it's pretty good. You know, Poop Rock got adjusted, which is great. You know, Dragon Knight dots got adjusted. All good stuff, in my opinion. This is all good stuff. And I know people are going to say it because, you know, I was talking to a few friends earlier today. There really aren't any discussions about some of the more lacking classes, i.e. Magic and Necromancer. You know, we'll have to see where Magical Warden kind of lands now with the adjustments that they did get this patch. I do think that they're in a little bit better spot in Dragonhold than they were in Scalebreaker. I don't know if that spot is good enough to be on par with some other classes, so we'll have to test that out. Magic and Nightblade, you know, not in the best of spots either, and so it'd be nice to see, you know, some Magic and Necromancer love, some Magic and Nightblade love, and some Magical Warden love, as well as some more, you know, class identity stamina-based abilities for our beloved Staminosauric and stuff like that. So, obviously, you know, they talked about in the past that they have a bunch of ideas and they're going to come in the future, so I guess we'll have to see how those go. But there's nothing in this that, you know, looks bad to me from a quality of life perspective in PvP. You know, people want dots to do damage, they're going to do damage. It's just not overwhelming shit on your life damage. So we'll have to test it out. We'll have to see what builds are going to be popular, of course. But that's the end of this video. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching, guys. Have a nice day.